It took Tolkien 14 years to write The Lord of the Rings. It took Peter Jackson over a year to create Middle-earth for screen. Jackson himself said he wanted to give Middle-earth a storybook feel. It is a land of myth and legend. Sean Cubitt talks about the way Weta Workshop and Weta Digital with their army of collaborators did more than visualise the most read and most imagined book of the 20th century. They realised the script, made real the fictional world where the narrative would take place. The challenge of realisation is in some senses the challenge of cinema itself. Miniatures, bigatures, digital maps, 3D animation, costume, set and prop design, forced perspective, location and studio shoots all contributed to the creation of Middle-earth. However, one way they made the film more enhanced was by digital colour grading. Lord of the Rings was shot on 33mm film. However, it was scanned into a computer in order to colour correct the film and give it that more mythical feel. They also chose to digitally enhance the images because the shoot spanned over 6 months and it was able to take some of the pressure off shooting. Digital colour grading meant that they could shoot for an extra half an hour after daylight, knowing that with digital they can pull it back to light. The technicians that worked with the digital grading were able to put different effects on the film. The elves benefited from it the most. For example, with Galadriel, they were able to make her skin gleam, as if she had some radiance coming from within her. With the shots of the battle scene in the prologue, they were able to digitally enhance the images to give it an antique feel, to give it that ancient feel. Almost 70% of the film had to be digitally colour graded. After the film had been digitally enhanced, it was then scanned back out onto 33mm film once more. Another way that Jackson brought Tolkien's story to life was by the use of music. Tolkien had different languages for all the races of Middle-earth. Each of these races had their own culture with songs and poetry. Jackson tried to incorporate this as much as possible within the films. Howard Shore was brought on to compose the soundtrack for the film. Shore and his team of linguistics worked together to develop scores for the different races of Middle-earth. This way of composing is called leitmotif. Author Justin Long explains that a constraint on the sound shape of leitmotifs is that they must be reasonably stable so that every time they are uttered or performed, they remain recognizable tokens of their leitmotif. Howard Shore uses the musical leitmotif to complement the mythic nature of the imagery on screen, which was digitally enhanced using digital colour grader, in order to give it that otherworldly feel. An example of the use of leitmotifs is the Fellowship theme, which follows the journey of the Fellowship throughout the film. Michael Sheen writes that music can aid characters in crossing great distances and long stretches of time almost instantaneously. This use of music is fairly frequent ever since the beginning of sound. The Fellowship theme first appears as the subtitles for the Fellowship of the Ring fades onto screen. Without even showing any of the characters that belong to the Fellowship, Shore has established the score to be a leitmotif to be associated with the Fellowship of the Ring. We hear it a few times in low forms as the Fellowship grows in the beginning of the film, before we hear it at its full crescendo when 9 members of the Fellowship have come together in the Council of Elrond scene. As Shore says himself, it's the Fellowship in a slow setting, showing now in a very heroic vision. The theme plays again when the 9 members are called to action in the Mines of Moria. It is the last time we hear the theme play in full as the Fellowship begins to break with the fall of Gandalf. The music of Lord of the Rings and the digital grading are examples of how Jackson brought Tolkien's world of Middle-earth to life. The shots of New Zealand, digitally enhanced, adds an element of epicness to Middle-earth, and the music complements the images on screen. Lord of the Rings is designed to look like a classic epic in terms of how it is shot. It does not appear outwardly digital. However, this is belied by the careful and self-conscious visual editing and musical direction.